I knew the moment I stepped into Bissimo that night that something felt wrong. Maybe it was the heavy silence under the crystal lights, or maybe it was the way my hands wouldn't stop shaking as I carried the wine tray. But mostly it was because table 9 was full, and everyone in the restaurant knew what that meant. The Callahan family was here. And at the head of the table sat the man I had been planning to face for months, Patrick Callahan. His reputation alone was enough to make most people freeze. But I wasn't scared because of his power. I was scared because of the truth I'd been carrying like a stone in my chest. A truth that could get me killed. A truth I had come here to deliver. My breath felt uneven as I approached the table. I kept my eyes down and focused on the glass, not on the man sitting inches from my shaking hands. I had practiced this moment in my bathroom mirror, but nothing had prepared me for how intense his presence would feel. His cologne reached me first, rich and clean and sharper than anything I'd ever smelled. Then his voice, deep and smooth like something poured slowly from a bottle. "You're new here." I almost dropped the tray. I kept my answers simple because anything more would reveal how fast my heart was beating. 3 weeks, sir. I was supposed to blend in. Just another quiet waitress trying to survive in a world too expensive for her. But Patrick's eyes lingered on me. Not in the way men usually looked at women. His gaze felt sharper, calculating, searching for something I had tried hard to bury. "You seem familiar." Every muscle in my body tightened. I forced myself to smile politely, even though panic pressed hard against my ribs. "I doubt we've met, Mr. Callahan." The lie nearly choked me, because I knew him far better than he could imagine. I had studied his life for months. I had stared at photographs of him, of his family, of the crime scene that changed both of our lives. I knew the weight of what I carried. And I knew I had one chance to say the words that had burned inside me since the night my father died. A glass tipped over beside him, and water spread across the tablecloth like a lifeline. I stepped forward quickly with a clean cloth. My hands moved before my mind could stop them. This was my moment. The only opening I would ever get. As I leaned in, I lowered my voice to a whisper meant only for him. "I know who killed your brother." The words left my mouth before I could take them back. For a second the world froze. His expression barely changed, but I saw it. A flash of shock. A crack through the cold mask he always wore. Then I straightened, like nothing had happened. I walked away with the same steady steps I used every night, but inside my pulse was hammering so hard it hurt. I knew I had just crossed a line no one crossed and survived. I felt his eyes on me the rest of the night, following me, studying me, deciding what I was, a threat, a liar, or something he wasn't prepared to face. By closing time, my stomach was twisted in knots. I knew he would come. I had planned for it, expected it. Still, when I stepped into the cold alley and saw the black SUV waiting, my breath caught. Roar, his head of security, stood beside the open door. The man was huge, silent, and carved out of stone. "Mr. Callahan would like a word." It wasn't a request. My legs felt like they didn't belong to me as I climbed inside. The door shut with a low thud, sealing me into a world I didn't belong in. Patrick was sitting across from me, his expression unreadable. Only his eyes betrayed anything. They were sharper now. Curious. Dangerous. "You have 1 minute," he said quietly, "to explain why you whispered something like that to me." I reached into my pocket before fear could stop me. I placed my father's badge on the seat between us. The weight of it nearly broke me. "My name is Harper Mitchell," I said. Detective Frank Mitchell was my father. His eyes moved to the badge. He turned it in his fingers slowly, like he wasn't just reading it but measuring everything it meant. "And why," he asked, "would a cop's daughter come to me instead of the police?" Quote. I met his gaze for the first time that night. It felt like touching fire. "Because the people who killed your brother," I said, "are the same people who killed my father, and some of them work for you." His silence was colder than any threat. But it didn't scare me. Not anymore. I had already lost everything that could be taken from me. All I had left was the truth. And him, the one man who could burn the entire city down if he believed me. "This is your proof?" he asked. "No," I said. "This is just the beginning." For the first time since I walked into Bisimo, he leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine in a way that felt like a warning and a promise all at once. "Then start from the beginning," he said, and I did. The SUV moved through Chicago like a silent shadow while I told Patrick everything. My voice felt tight, but steady, as if the truth had been waiting inside me for the right moment to break free. I told him about the night I found my father, how the police ruled it a suicide within hours, how they ignored every sign that something was wrong, how they shut every door in my face when I begged them to investigate. I told him about the case files I found hidden behind our family photo, the ones my father must have stashed when he realized someone inside the department had turned against him. Patrick didn't interrupt once. He just watched me, his eyes fixed on my face, sharp and searching. I had imagined this moment so many times, but I never expected him to listen the way he did. Calm, silent, and intense enough to make it hard to breathe. When I finished, he leaned back slowly, the leather creaking beneath him. "You are asking me to believe," he said, "that men inside my organization betrayed my brother, and that they're working with corrupt cops." "I'm not asking you to believe me," I answered. "I'm asking you to look at the evidence." I pulled the envelope from my jacket, my father's insurance policy, the thing that had destroyed every peaceful night I might have had. I placed it in his hands, watching his expression shift as he looked at the photos inside. His brother, David Callahan, meeting with my father in quiet corners of the city, reviewing documents together, planning something neither man lived to finish. He wanted to change things. Patrick said softly, "David thought the business could be clean, safer." The pain in his voice felt raw, so different from the cold reputation he carried. It struck something deep in me. I had not expected to find grief behind the Mafia boss mask. "My father believed he could trust your brother," I said. "They were working together. They were closing in on the people stealing money from your business. Someone found out." Patrick's jaw tightened, his fingers curled around the envelope. "And you think I wasn't involved in any of it?" "I had to be sure," I admitted. "That's why I took the job at the restaurant, to watch you. To learn who you were." He gave a short breath that wasn't quite a laugh. "You've been spying on me for 3 weeks." "You're not easy to spy on," I said quietly. That made him look at me differently, as if he hadn't expected honesty from someone who lied for a living just to survive. He nodded once to roar, and the SUV turned sharply toward the north side. When we stopped in front of a beautiful brownstone, I felt my pulse spike. This wasn't a warehouse or a cell. This was something else. "My safe house," Patrick said as he stepped out. "You'll be staying here." It didn't feel like an invitation. It felt like a command. A soft one, but still a command. Inside, the place was warm and elegant. It smelled, faintly, of cedar. The lights were low, the windows protected by privacy glass. Cameras blinked silently in the corners. "You expect me to stay here?" I asked. "I expect you to stay alive," he replied, "and that won't happen out there." He removed his suit jacket and rested it on the back of a chair. He looked different like this. Less like a king at the head of a family, and more like a man trying to solve a puzzle that hit too close to home. "Show me everything," he said, gesturing to the large table in the living room. For 3 days, I hardly saw him. I organized the notes, files, numbers, and patterns that had swallowed my father's life. Every trail led to the same place, the same people, the same betrayal. On the 4th morning, when I came downstairs, Patrick was already at the table, his sleeves rolled up, his tie discarded, his hair slightly messy in a way that made my stomach flutter before I forced myself to look away. "Your work is good," he said without glancing up. "I studied forensic accounting before." I paused, the memory stinging, "before everything happened." "You have a talent for it," he said quietly. Something in his voice made me look at him. His eyes were not cold, not distant. They were fixed on me with a sincerity I hadn't expected. We talked for hours, about the stolen money, about the men involved, about his brother, about my father. Every piece of evidence brought us closer to the truth, but it also pulled something else between us, something neither of us wanted to name. That night, Roar brought dinner from an Italian place Patrick said belonged to his mother. It tasted like warmth after weeks of fear and exhaustion, and for the first time in months, I laughed. Just a little. Patrick listened to every word, his eyes softer now, not calculating but curious. "You would have made an excellent detective," he said while watching me. I wasn't prepared for how deeply that hit me. I felt a smile pull at my lips before I could stop it. Later, when I finally returned to my room on the 3rd floor, I leaned against the door and let out a breath I didn't know I had been holding. I had come to Patrick Callahan to use him. Now I wasn't sure if I was losing myself to him. The peace inside the brownstone didn't last. It couldn't. Not with the truth closing in on the people who had killed my father and Patrick's brother. I woke to shouting on the 4th morning, not fear, but urgency. When I ran downstairs, Elise, Patrick's driver, stood in the kitchen with blood soaking through her jacket sleeve. She looked pale but steady. "They made Walsh," she said. "He's dead, and they know someone's been digging." Patrick changed in an instant. The warmth from last night disappeared, replaced by the storm I had expected the first time I whispered the truth in his ear. He moved fast, giving orders with calm precision, his voice sharp but steady. "The safe house is compromised," he said to me, opening a drawer and placing a sleek handgun in my palm. "Stay close to me and remember what I taught you." My fingers tightened around the metal. I didn't tell him I was terrified. I didn't need to. He looked at me for a long moment, something tightening in his eyes. "We're leaving. Now." The drive to his penthouse was a blur of side streets and sharp turns, Elise cursing softly under her breath as she kept us ahead of anyone tracking us. When we finally pulled into a private underground garage, I felt my chest loosen for the first time in an hour. "My personal residence," Patrick said as we entered a private elevator. "Only 4 people know this place exists." The elevator opened into a world I wasn't prepared for. Floor-to-ceiling windows looking over Lake Michigan. A piano with sheet music still open. Shelves of well-worn books. Framed family photos that showed Patrick and David as boys, smiling in ways the world never saw now. There was something almost painfully human about the space. He moved through the rooms, checking security, his suit jacket gone, his shoulder holster visible as naturally as a second skin. When he returned to where I stood, I saw something in his face I hadn't seen before. He wasn't just preparing for danger. He was preparing to lose something. "We need to accelerate our timeline," he said. "Wendell moved the meeting up to tonight." "Why?" I asked. "He claims he found the source of the financial discrepancies." His jaw tightened. "He's planning something." I nodded slowly. "A setup." His eyes met mine. "Exactly." We spent hours reviewing documents, files, coded messages. I analyzed numbers while Patrick studied alliances and betrayals. At some point, our shoulders touched as we leaned over the same page, and neither of us moved away. Something warm and electric ran through me. I told myself it was adrenaline. I wasn't sure I believed it. Then I found something. Security footage I hadn't seen before. "Stop," I said, pointing at the screen. Patrick leaned closer, his breath brushing my cheek, his shoulder pressed against mine. My heart jumped, but my eyes stayed fixed on the footage. "That's Detective Walsh," I whispered. "He testified he was across town," Patrick said. The timestamp destroyed his alibi. We looked at each other, close enough to feel the heat of each breath, and I knew the line between us was thinning fast. Too fast. Roar arrived with dinner a few hours later, and for a moment the tension eased. The food came from Patrick's mother's restaurant, and I listened as he told stories about growing up around the business. He talked about David wanting a clean future, a real legacy. He talked about the burden of carrying a last name everyone feared. I found myself opening up too. I told him about following my father to crime scenes, about learning accounting from old case files, about how numbers made sense to me when nothing else did. He used to say I saw patterns where others saw chaos. I said quietly. Patrick smiled, a soft, unexpected smile that changed everything about his face. "He was right," he said. "You do." The compliment warmed something inside me I thought had died the night my father was killed. We talked until past midnight. Then silence settled between us. A different kind of silence. One that hummed with something dangerous and unspoken. But dawn ended, whatever that moment might have become. Elise burst in again, this time carrying fear instead of food. "They killed Walsh," she said. "They're cleaning house." Patrick swore under his breath and began issuing orders, each one sharp and deadly. Then he turned to me. "You stay with me." No exceptions. Before I could answer, alarms buzzed on the penthouse security screens. Someone had tried to access the building 3 floors down. "They found us already?" I whispered. "No," he said after a quick check. "Just a minor breach, but we're out of time." He stepped toward me and lifted his hand to my face. His thumb brushed a strand of hair from my cheek, the touch soft and slow, completely at odds with the chaos around us. "Harper," he said, his voice low and steady, "nothing is going to happen to you, not while I'm breathing." My breath caught. His face was inches from mine. His eyes weren't cold. They were something else entirely, something I didn't dare name. But before that moment could break into something real, his phone rang. Wendell. Patrick straightened instantly. His voice shifted into something calm and unreadable as he answered. When he hung up, the softness in his eyes was gone. "The meeting is tonight," he said. "We have until then to finish this." And just like that, we were back in the storm, but I could still feel the ghost of his hand on my cheek. The hours before the meeting felt like the final stretch, before a storm hit the shore. Everything inside me was tense, sharp, and ready to snap. Patrick moved through the penthouse like a man carrying the weight of a city on his shoulders, his voice low as he coordinated with his most trusted people. When he finally turned to me, his expression softened just a little. "Harper, when this starts, you stay behind me, understand?" "I'm not hiding," I said. "I'm not asking you to hide. I'm asking you to survive." Something in the way he said it struck me deep, but there was no time to answer. We split up to carry out the plan. Patrick would confront Wendell at the council meeting with the partial evidence. Roar, Elise, Mason, and I would handle Captain Brooks at a hidden office in the Meridian building. "If anything feels wrong, you leave immediately," Patrick told me before we separated. His hand cupped my cheek again, gentle in a way that hurt more than anything else. "Come back to me, Harper." I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded. The Meridian building's underground parking level looked empty when we arrived, but something about the silence felt tight and watchful. Mason guided us with a bitter edge in his voice. He knew Brooks better than anyone, knew his routes, knew his habits. Brooks appeared exactly on schedule, stepping off the service elevator like he owned the place. The moment he saw us, his face tightened with recognition and panic. "You don't want to do this," he warned Roar, reaching for his weapon. Roar didn't flinch. "You killed the wrong man." Brooks shoved his jacket aside to draw, but I stepped into the fluorescent light before he could. My father's badge hung from my fingers. "This is for Detective Frank Mitchell," I said. His eyes widened, just a flicker, but it was enough. Between Roar's strength and my aim, the captain went down hard, zip-tied and cursing as we loaded him into the car. Mason watched the whole thing from the corner, pale and sweating. He knew the walls were closing in. "Patrick will end you for what you did," Roar said to him, but Mason only looked at me. "You're just like your father, too stubborn for your own good." For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity, power, purpose. "That's why he wins," I said. We didn't have time to waste. As soon as we had Brooks secured, I sent the message to Patrick. "Brooks is in custody. Confessing soon. Be careful." Across the city, inside a polished wood-paneled room, Patrick faced Wendell and the entire Callahan leadership. Later, he would tell me the air felt thick with deceit the moment he walked in. Wendell was ready for war, but he had no idea how much we had uncovered. Patrick exposed financial losses Wendell couldn't explain. Offshore accounts, secret meetings with the Petrova family, patterns even the most loyal council members couldn't ignore. "The Petrovas didn't infiltrate us," Patrick said. "They were invited." Wendell's mask cracked. For the first time, he looked afraid. As the council moved to restrain him, Patrick's phone buzzed with my message. He finally allowed himself to breathe. Back at the safe location, Patrick's father's hidden panic room, we recorded both confessions. Mason's voice shook. Brooks's voice broke. But the truth came pouring out like poison finally draining from a wound. When the sun rose, we had everything. Emails, financial transfers, orders, motives, names, and the truth about my father and David Callahan's murders. Patrick watched the evidence spread across the table. His face carried exhaustion, relief, fury, and something soft when he looked at me. "You did it," he said. "We did it." Later that day, indictments were handed out. Federal agents swarmed police departments and the Petrova district. Wendell and Brooks were arrested on camera. The world finally saw them for who they were. My father's name was cleared. His badge returned to me with honor instead of whispers. People called me a hero, but none of them knew about the man standing just out of frame, watching me with quiet pride. Patrick kept his distance in public. For my sake, he said. But the second we were alone again in his study, the walls we'd built between us crumbled. He closed the door behind him and stepped close, the same way he had that night in the penthouse when danger pressed us together. "Your father would be proud of you," he said softly. A breath escaped me, shaky and real. "He would hate that I worked with you." "Maybe," Patrick said, "but he would love who you became." I lifted my eyes to his. The intensity there should have scared me. It didn't, not anymore. "I didn't come to Bissimo for this," I whispered. "I know." His voice dropped lower. "But you walked into my life and set it on fire." His hand brushed my jaw, slow and warm, nothing like the way a Mafia boss should touch someone. It felt like honesty. It felt like a beginning. The distance between us dissolved, not rushed, not desperate, just inevitable. When his lips met mine, it wasn't the kiss of a monster or a king. It was the kiss of a man who had lost everything and found someone who refused to leave him in the dark. Weeks later, my father was honored at a ceremony, his name finally restored. Patrick stood at the back of the room, hidden but present. His eyes stayed on me the entire time. He rebuilt his empire without the corruption that had destroyed his brother. I rebuilt my life with the truth that had nearly broken me. And somehow, in the wreckage, we found each other. One night we returned to Bissimo. The same table. The same chandelier, but everything had changed. Patrick reached out and took my hand across the table, the same one I once wiped while trembling. "Harper," he said, "I don't want a world without you in it." My heart softened in a way I didn't think it could anymore. "Then you'll never have to." And the man who once made the city fear his name smiled at me like I was the first quiet moment he'd had in years.